This EOFY, get deals that don't blend in. Like 1.9% finance across select variants when you finance with Nissan. All backed by Australia's only 10-year, 300,000-kilometre warranty. Get into your local Nissan dealer today.
Hello from the Amplify newsroom, I'm Tamara Cartwright. Anthony Albanese has called for full dialogue and de-escalation as he reiterates Australia's support of the US strikes on Iran. 3 nuclear sites in the Middle Eastern country were obliterated yesterday in an American attack. Anthony Albanese says the nation doesn't want to see full-scale war.
The world has long agreed that Iran cannot be allowed to get a nuclear weapon, and we support action to prevent that, and that is what this is.
Don't panic, but it might be an idea to fill your petrol tank in coming days. That's the advice from the NRMA as world oil prices increase in the wake of the US strikes. We're being told it takes between 7 and 10 days for the hikes to flow through to the Bowser. 30,000 new homes by 2030 are on the way as the ACT government unveils a major housing push in tomorrow's budget with $145 million on the table. The plan promises to boost supply through land releases, affordable housing and planning reforms. Deputy Chief Minister Yvette Berry says real change is coming, starting in the Molonglo Valley.
We'll see another 85 public homes built, another 17 public homes built in the Molonglo area, 300 affordable rentals. It's a really exciting part of this program.
Women's public safety is in the spotlight with an ACT senator launching a community survey asking Canberra women and girls to share their experiences and thoughts on the issue in the capital. Katie Gallagher says the survey asks women how safe they feel, how safety concerns influence their behaviour, and suggestions on how to make our city safer, with the findings to help shape the government's response to the issue. It comes just weeks after hundreds of locals walked through Mulligan's Flat Nature Reserve in a stand against violence after a woman was allegedly attacked there. The nation's capital is set to host the Socceroos facing off against New Zealand as they look to bring home the Anzac Soccer Ashes. Minister for Sport and Recreation Yvette Berry says the local government is committed to expanding the ACT's international sports scene.
We've had the Matildas, we've had the Brumbies and the British Lions, now we've got the Socceroos coming. We're constantly open to conversations with international sports groups and communities to bring more content like that to the ACT.
Calls today for the government to overhaul on the tax on tobacco products. Health authorities says the high cost of cigarettes and the ban on devices is responsible for the explosion in the black market. They say Australia should move away from prohibition and move towards a harm reduction approach. And an incredible result after Gimme 5 Day on Friday, raising funds to support sick kids at Canberra Hospital. CEO of the Canberra Hospital Foundation, Helen Fowler, says donations from locals continued to come in over the weekend.
We've reached an incredible total of over $35,000.
The ACT government's 2024-25 budget has blown out to a $1.11 billion deficit, almost $150 million more than expected, as rising costs and new spending stretch the territory's finances. From July 1, Access Canberra will be absorbed into a new City and Environment Directorate, part of a major public sector shake-up aimed at modernising and streamlining services. A new $250 health levy will be charged to all residential property owners and appear on rates notices. At the same time, car registration fees will jump by 6%, with a standard 12-month rego now costing $661. Treasurer Chris Steele says these are tough decisions that had to be made.
And that has meant new revenue measures to be able to support services continuing, as well as work on the expenditure side, particularly to reduce the rate of growth of employee expenses in the public service.
Overseas now, Israel has agreed to a ceasefire. Their Prime Minister releasing a statement saying he agrees with Donald Trump's proposal, the US President urging both sides not to violate the truce. Meantime, passengers on a flight from Perth to Paris, which was turned around because of the missile strikes, have arrived home. They spent 15 hours in the air only to land back where they started. As legislative changes look to reduce compensation for some victims of crime, the local DVCS is encouraging people to apply for financial compensation before June 30.
If somebody has a current eligibility and considering putting in an application, to do that so that their claim can be evaluated against the current criteria and the current maximum cap, which are greater than what they will be come 1st of July.
DVCS CEO Sue Wiebeck there. Guidelines for the recognition payment payment for several compensation types will be revised from July 1st. Australia's top netballers are most worried about financial security and fair pay, with many players needing a second job. The Australian Netball Players Association found pro netballers struggle to balance their lifestyles as minimum super netball salaries to rise to $46,000 by 2026. And a major milestone for the Canberra Theatre Centre, with today marking their diamond anniversary. On June 24 in 1965, the doors opened to Australia's very first multi-venue performing arts centre. Executive producer Lisa Freshwater talking about tonight's performance as a full circle moment.
The incredible Australian Ballet here with their production of Carmen on the Canberra Theatre stage tonight. And that is a beautiful full circle moment as they performed at the premiere gala concert back in 1965.
The ACT Greens reckon yesterday's local budget has missed the mark, particularly when it comes to the increased rates and levies. Leader Shane Rattenbury says the extra revenue should have been raised from those who can afford it, like big corporations, rather than passing the bill onto everyday Canberrans.
The Greens have proposed an increase in payroll tax for the largest corporations operating in the city who are making significant profit. These are the places we think we can generate revenue.
Meanwhile, the ACT Council of Social Service has criticised the health levy and cuts to rent relief, making those on low incomes even more vulnerable. A rescue mission for Aussies wanting to flee the Middle East has seen more than 100 get out safely. Our federal government is set to attempt more Mercy flights as the opportunity arises, as 4,000 have now registered for help. The Treasurer has welcomed the latest inflation data, which is promising news for mortgage holders. CPI slowed to a lower than expected 2.1% in the year to May, down from 2.4% last month, bolstering expectations of an interest rate cut next month. Treasurer Jim Chalmers says it's a great outcome.
It's the lowest headline inflation since the beginning of 2021. It's the lowest underlying inflation since the end of 2021.
Susan Lee has vowed to boost the number of women in the Liberal Party. The opposition leader telling the Press Club the party must pre-select women for winnable seats at the 2028 federal election.
It's time to get serious about women in the Liberal Party. I want to work proactively, passionately to achieve more women in the Liberal Party. What we have now is completely unacceptable.
And investigations underway into a group of locals who've allegedly scammed sellers out of expensive items like cars. It's prompted ACT police to remind locals selling second-hand items to make sure they never hand anything over until payment has been received, ideally in cash. The hunt's on for a man who allegedly yelled aggressive, derogatory remarks at a person walking their dog in Dunlop on June 8. Police have released a face-fit image in a bid to identify the man. Anyone with info is urged to call Crime Stoppers. The current scheme for sharing and hiring electric scooters is set to be expanded in Canberra to include the potential return of shared e-bikes. Providers are invited to apply for new permits from next Wednesday. The hazmat team was busy in Belconnen today after a gas leak forced the Ginninderra Medical and Dental Centre to close. And a new doco is coming to Netflix, hopelessly devoted to Olivia Newton-John. It'll explore the life and music of the star and the health battles she faced along the way. The Canberra Liberals have delivered their budget reply, slamming the government for dishing out higher rates, fees and charges. Opposition leader Leanne Castley says it actually makes people's cost of living struggles worse. The party's outlined 3 priority areas: making housing more affordable, reducing the cost of living and delivering better public services. Another 29 Australians have been evacuated to safety from Tel Aviv on an ADF-assisted flight. It comes after 118 Aussies left the region on board the first repatriation flight when Israel's airspace reopened earlier this week. There's a new approach being taken to the nation's deadliest cancer. From July 1, Aussies at high risk of lung cancer can get free screening through Medicare. People aged 50 to 70 who smoke or have smoked but show no signs of the disease will be eligible.
We know if we pick them up early, they're much easier to treat and patients are much more likely to go on to survive and to live many years.
That's Federal Health Minister Mark Butler. A Greenway teen's been charged after allegedly assaulting staff at Canberra Hospital early this morning while getting treatment there. Police say the 17-year-old had to be restrained by security after becoming aggressive and violent. 20 ACT fireys are heading to Canada to help with the wildfire crisis over there. ACT Rural Fire Service Chief Officer Rowan Scott says they're heading over with a third Australian contingent.
It's always difficult to get, nearly 40 days away from your family and a workplace, but very supportive families, very supportive workplaces. Great opportunity for everyone to go over there.
A Canberra uni student says locals are getting sick of the ongoing problems with the My Way Plus system and the inquiry delays. Charles Marpang has launched a petition calling for a raft of improvements to what he's described as a half-baked system.
Just like with food that is half-baked, it makes people sick. And in reality, we are getting sick of this half-baked My Way Plus system, and we want some change.
With tax time around the corner, the ATO is urging us not to file them early. The tax office says the best time to lodge returns is late July, so pre-filled information can be automatically included. And Canberra has shifted into second place for being one of the most expensive cities in Australia to learn manual driving, with lessons averaging $92 an hour. It's being described as the biggest basketball event Canberra's ever seen. The NBL pre-season blitz is coming to the AIS, with all 10 teams battling it out over 5 days in August. Local MP Tamus Werner-Gibbing says it's a game changer for sport in the ACT.
To host the NBL Blitz here, to give Canberran fans an opportunity to come and see some brilliant talent the best talent in Australia is a wonderful opportunity. And it's not just Canberra fans as well, it's going to be visitors.
The ACT Greens have slammed Labor's $250 health levy, labelling it unfair and regressive. Leader Shane Rattenbury says they won't support it, saying a higher tax threshold should be introduced instead for big corporations to lend more of a hand.
The Greens prefer an approach where we see a small increase in payroll tax from big companies like Coles and Woolies, the big banks, the airlines. Those companies are generating significant profits in the ACT, and we should see them making a greater contribution than everyday Canberrans.
The two men convicted of murdering Perth teenager Cassius Turvey have been sentenced to life. 24-year-old Jack Brearley and 30-year-old Brodie Palmer killed the 15-year-old by bashing him with a metal pole. While Indonesian police now claim to have enough evidence to charge 3 Aussie men with the premeditated murder of a Melbourne father of 6 at a Bali villa a couple of weeks back. The charges, if found guilty, come with a life sentence or death penalty. The opposition leader is standing firm by her pledge to recruit more women into the Liberal Party. It comes as the LNP begins its rebuild following their crushing defeat at the federal election. Susan Lee telling Nine if things don't change, the party will only continue its decline.
This is incredibly important. When I came into the parliament in 2001, more women in Australia voted Liberal than for any other party. Now that number has been declining ever since. We've got to arrest that decline.
Another of the big 4 banks appears confident the Reserve Bank will cut interest rates within weeks. Westpac joining the Commonwealth in predicting a reduction in July instead of August. That's off the back of this week's better-than-expected inflation data. Work starts on Canberra's first light rail bridge tonight, which will see Parksway closed in both directions from Glenlock Interchange to Corranderk Street over the weekend. Anthony Haroldson from Infrastructure Canberra acknowledges it will cause some traffic disruption.
Having those diversions in place will be disruptive to those people travelling over the weekend. However, this work is essential to make sure that those foundations can be constructed safely within the median of Parksway.
And messages of devastation have been flooding in online following the news. Another Canberra icon is shutting up shop. The G-Spot food truck is closing for now after more than 23 years. And that's the latest from the Canberra newsroom this Friday. Check back again Monday morning for our next update.
This is Will, and Will always likes more. That's why Will uses car sales to buy a car. We have over 200,000 new, used and demo cars to choose from, all there on the app.
Perfect.
Car sales in Melbourne Storm. More, better.